price of 10 grams of 24 karat gold is recorded at 159,465 rupees today, while the price of 10 grams of 22 karat gold in Pakistan is reported at 146,176 rupees today. Met Office has predicted rain, thunderstorm with snow over the hills during the next 24 hours. According to Met Office, rain, thunderstorm with snow is expected over the hills at the isolated places in Upper Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, Kashmir, Gilgit-Baltistan, Upper and Northern Punjab and Northern Balochistan. However, cold weather is likely elsewhere in the country during this forecast period. The Met Office informed that a westerly wave is affecting Northern Balochistan and upper parts of the country and likely to continue in upper parts during the next few days. Today's minimum recorded temperatures in Pakistan were Leh at -10 degrees Celsius, Gupis at -9 degrees Celsius, Astor at -8, Kalam at -7, Skardu, Malam Jabba, Ziarat, Parachanar at -6 degrees Celsius, Hunza and Bagrot at -5 degrees Celsius, Kalat and Parachanar at -4 degrees Celsius. That's about it from my side, Ahsan Haqqani. It's back to the main desk.
Well, thank you very much, Ahsan. This is all for now. For more details and live streaming, log on to our website world.ptv.com.pk. You can find PTV World page on Facebook and also follow us on Twitter handle @WorldPTV. From Ahsan, Jawad and Maheen, it's goodbye for now.
Geographically diverse, ethnically disparate, rich in historical and cultural heritage, picturesquely gorgeous, and flawlessly beautiful. This is magnificent Pakistan. Its majestic snow-capped mountains, mesmerizing fairy meadows, world's second highest plateau, the roof of the world, lakes, lush green valleys, stretch of cozy beaches and wildlife diversities have powered Pakistan to be ranked in 2020 the best holiday destination. In 2018, Forbes magazine ranked it as the coolest place to visit. In 2019, British Backpackers Society ranked Pakistan the world's top adventure travel destination. Over the recent past, the country has recorded unprecedented influx of vloggers from across the world. These beautiful scenes offer idyllic retreat to a large number of foreigners each year. Its mighty rivers have been a bastion of old civilization for centuries. Archaeological remains at Mohenjo-daro in Larkana, Sindh, Harappa near Ravi River, and relics of Hindu-Buddhist culture at Taxla, and monastic complex at Takhbai are special sites for local and foreign tourists. Endorsing religious freedom, Pakistan offers extra attraction to the pilgrims of the world-known religions of our time. Pakistan's diverse ethnicity, coupled with friendly looks of its people, is a welcome sign for all those who travel to this part of the world. Its cultural delicacies present myriad colors of distinct peculiarities. Artifacts showing exquisite workmanship of local artisans offer travel souvenirs including jewelry, gemstones, carpets and homegrown but mind-blowing track art are the objects of awe-stricken onlookers. In Pakistan's popular cuisines inspired by Mughal tradition include pulao, biryani, korma, along with non-urban traditional cuisines and common street foods. Large swathes of its agriculture, fields abounding livestock, excessive milk production, its sweet mangoes and citrus fruits carry the brand name of Pakistan to worldwide destinations. Textile products and articles of sports including FIFA footballs and cricket balls represent skills of Pakistanis all around the world. To facilitate tourists and visitors, the government has done away with NOC requisitions while offering online visa sources to 175 countries and on arrival visa to 50 other countries. Pakistan the Magnificent, a thriving country with an ambition to offer peace, hospitality and happiness to all.
Don't be satisfied with stories, how things have gone with others. Unfold your own myth.
اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Newsroom. I'm your host, Khalid Bhatt.
When we write something, we share our vision.
This is a very good opportunity to discuss everything.
It was devastating to see the impact of these monsoon floods.
250 recommendations were given to India from various member states, and unfortunately only around 152, 153 were implemented.
Germans are very straight people. They generally have a positive impression about
Assalamu alaikum, you're watching PTV World. This is Maheen with the top stories for this hour. Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif calls on UAE businessmen to utilize the immense opportunities in Pakistan, which is a market of over 220 million people and offers its investors a strong and large consumer market. It says energy, infrastructure, e-commerce, agro-based industry and IT sectors are up for grabs. Pakistan and Russia agree to strengthen energy cooperation, enhance energy trade and broaden energy infrastructure investment based on strategic and favorable commercial terms. Pakistan and Russia will finalize transactional structures by March this year. State Minister for Petroleum Sadiq Malik says Pakistani refineries are capable to process Russian crude oil from 30 to 35% and the country will start importing crude oil after March. Finance Minister Ishaq Dar chairs inaugural meeting of Reforms and Resource Mobilization Commission in Islamabad. He says the government is determined to set the economy in right direction and introducing reforms in various sectors to achieve economic stability and growth. Foreign Minister Bilawal Bhutto Zardari calls for revamping and restructuring of the international financial institutions to address complaints of Global South. He stresses that we should return to normative functioning of international institutions for the resolution of disputes. First meeting of the Parliamentary Committee of Punjab Assembly ends without any consensus on appointment of caretaker Chief Minister. The committee has 3 days to agree on a name, failing which the matter will be referred to Election Commission. The Election Commission of Pakistan denotifies 35 more PTI members of the National Assembly following the acceptance of their resignations by Speaker National Assembly Raja Parvez Ashraf. In Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, hundreds of people staged a protest demonstration in Ramban district against BJP regime's decision to evict people from their land. Russia says it has captured 2 villages in Ukraine's Klishchivka with the help of pro-Russian separatist forces, artillery and aviation support. Pakistan Super League 8th edition to kick off from 13th of February in Multan. An event conclude on 19th of March in Lahore after 34 matches played at 4 stadiums in Karachi, Lahore, Rawalpindi and Multan. Third and last one-day international between Pakistan women and Australia women will be played in Sydney tomorrow. PTV Sports HD will telecast the match live. Coming up next is Newsroom with Omar Khalid. Stay tuned.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Newsroom. I'm your host, Khalid. Today is Friday, the 20th of January, 2023. The first month of the first year of this 2023 is moving on very fast. There are a lot of things that we've discussed in the past, and today is no exception. We've got lots to discuss with you. We'll begin with a BBC Two series that has come out in two parts that criticizes and in fact unearths a lot of truths about Narendra Modi, his government, and the way he has been perpetrating barbarities against the Muslims. This two-part series has, of course, as usual, been criticized by the Indian spokesperson as well, and he calls it a bunch of lies. Nevertheless, the BBC says that it has extensively researched this documentary that is in two parts, and all the details that are in this documentary are based on extensive research and facts. We will discuss different aspects of Indian barbarities in our first segment. We have been discussing that in the past as well, but this time we have the BBC backing us with a very strong documentary. Our second segment, ladies and gentlemen, concerns the spread of misinformation, disinformation, and fake news. We are of course a very important year, 2023. We also have seen this year and in the past how the different issues pertaining to fake news and disinformation have affected Pakistan, whether it be through the EU Disinfo Lab report, whether it be through other disinformation tactics that countries like India have been using against Pakistan, or even in the national politics, how certain quarters have been using it against government institutions in order to malign it, in order to destabilize the government. How important it is for public to understand what is fake news and what is truth, what is information and what is disinformation or misinformation. We will be discussing that in our second segment. Then finally, we will be talking about the World Bank Country Director for Pakistan, Mr. Ben Haseen, who has rejected reports of a delay in the loan approval for Pakistan. As you very well know, the World Bank had said that it is going to give a loan to Pakistan, and there were certain media quarters that has released this report some time back saying that there was a delay till the next fiscal year. This has been denied by the World Bank Country Director, and he has said this on Twitter. He has added that tentative board approval dates of all proposed operations and their fundings are clear. I hope this is clear now. Let's begin with our first segment, and that concerns India, the barbarities it is perpetrating against Muslims, whether it be in illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir or elsewhere within India, and how a documentary by the British Broadcasting Corporation, BBC Two, has unearthed that based on fact and fiction. More the following report.
India under BJP government is persistently sliding towards Hindutva-inspired fundamentalist theocracy. Narendra Modi's premiership has been dogged by persistent allegations about the attitude of his government towards India's Muslim population. Indian assault on democratic values and civil liberties has now garnered global attention, and the country as a whole is being periodically called out for rising Islamophobia and the institutionalized dilution of Muslims' rights. BBC has prepared a two-episode series on Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi titled India, the Modi Question, that investigates the systematic campaign of Gujarat violence 2002, comprising all the hallmarks of ethnic cleansing and places direct responsibility on Modi. The BBC series terms Modi as product of RSS and analyzes the implementation of Citizenship Amendment Act. According to the documentary, the inquiry team claimed that Modi had prevented the police from acting to stop a violence targeted at Muslims and cited sources as saying Modi had specifically ordered authorities not to intervene. The report also revealed that there was widespread rape of Muslim women during the 2002 violence. It added that the right's objective was to purge Muslims from Hindu areas that has become state policy under the BJP's Hindu nationalist agenda. The investigative BBC documentary has confirmed Pakistan's long-standing assertion that Modi-led government was directly responsible for fomenting Gujarat violence, and recently at a UN conference, Foreign Minister Bilawal Bhutto Zardari had described Modi as the butcher of Gujarat.
Dr. Jamil Ahmed Khan, former Ambassador, Foreign Affairs Analyst, joins us online. Dr. Saab, thank you very much to have joined us. Dr. Saab, we've discussed India with you in the past as well. We've discussed the barbarities with you in the past as well. But this time we've got a substantial documentary made by the BBC to back our facts and figures. How important is this documentary, and in your point of view, what are the basic striking features of this two-part series?
No, it has already stamped whatever has been happening and what were the features of the Gujarat riots and Gujarat massacre under the leadership of Narendra Modi. So that has further stamped it, and it's not only documentary made by their own reporters, and of course it was filmed and it was made by BBC, but they have relied on very authenticated sources from their archive, from the clippings of Gujarat, and from the fact that how Narendra Modi was, he was restricted, how his visas were refused by so many countries, including US and UK, and how people had gone into the court once Narendra Modi became Prime Minister and arrived in UK. And what kind of objection, what kind of retaliation was faced once once Modi went to US. Above all, very recently, Modi has shown his resolve in the joint statement of the G7 countries that the freedom of press, he was emphasizing on the freedom of press that it should. But then what is happening in India and what happened at that time, even an MP whose name Mr. Jaffrey, he was surrounded by the people in Gujarat, by the RSS killers in Gujarat, and then he called Modi, he succeeded in talking to Modi, which Modi later on in his statement denied, and after a few moments he was lynched by the crowd, and he was an MP of Congress party. So all these things are the matter of record which this documentary has been made. This is what we've been talking in various programs. This is what so many human rights proponents and human rights activists have been saying. But now, after this documentary film, this has further been authenticated, and it would definitely have its impact. It will definitely have its impact on the minds and hearts of the people, which is needed, because India normally takes an advantage. And so far, it's been taking an advantage of its clout in terms of the trade and commerce, in terms of the strategic interest of the important countries, the powerful countries, including United States and its allies, and the requirement of India of standing in front of China towards the containment of China as a foreign policy, important point of the US. So India is taking the advantage of that. Otherwise, based on such documentary proof and documentary films and documentaries of such an authenticated channel of the world, which is independent so far its editorial board is concerned, totally independent. And
it is based on facts and figures, Dr. Saab. That is the most important thing. It is also based on relevant quotes by Mr. Jack Straw, who was the British Foreign Secretary at the time of the violence. He also was interviewed in this documentary. He said the allegations against Modi did undermine his reputation, and he said, quote unquote, I'd like to add that these were very serious claims. The then Chief Minister Modi had played a pretty active part in pulling back the police and in tacitly encouraging the Hindu extremists. Doesn't he continue to do that? But of course the world stays mum on that as well. Do you feel this documentary will put some kind of a dent as far as the so-called quote-unquote Modi reputation is concerned?
Oh, Modi reputation, in fact, was dented even once he had taken over as a Prime Minister. But later on, because of the facts which I just enumerated, because of their significance in terms of the world's interest, and particularly the important countries of the world. So because of which he could get away from that. But now this documentary definitely is going to refresh the memories of decision makers, number one, but more importantly, the memories of human rights activists, including the Human Rights Council. And I would not have any surprise if I see the next Human Rights Council agenda, where some member country might as well raise this point about Narendra Modi. Jack Straw, you mentioned, that's true. but he was a Home Secretary once the investigation was ordered. Now, the External Affairs Ministry and the spokesman, they are trying to, just prove the point that this was an interference in the internal affairs of the...
They say the Indian side says it's a propaganda piece. They say it's a propaganda piece. They say it is to push a discredited narrative. They say there's a bias, lack of objectivity and continuing colonial mindset, which is blatantly visible in it. I mean, they couldn't be further from the truth. And when at the same time, when they talk about discredited narrative and propaganda piece, we have a film that was made by the Indians that has just been re-released that gives a totally different and false narrative of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Where does that narrative go in this case?
It further augments what is the mindset of RSS-empowered BJP government headed by Modi. It only testifies that entire mindset of the party, entire mindset of Hindutva, entire mindset and the strategy of RSS that is being implemented in Kashmir. Why they have done it, why they did it in Gujarat. Even today, those people who were affected by that riots and the massacre, they are scared of going to their own properties and their own houses because they have seen those massacred of their loved one in front of them, and for hours and hours, for days, no one came for their rescue. It was under the shadow and umbrella. So talking about Kashmir, they are now succeedingly trying to change the demography. They have done whatever atrocities was possible to be done, and what we are discussing here, that has been documented by the Human Rights
But Dr. Jamil,
Commission.
if you talk of atrocities, there have been so many and we can name them and list them. But one of the major atrocities that can be also highlighted by the Human Rights Watch, by the Genocide Watch and so many other, and has been in the past as well, is the rape of women. In the Gujarat riots, there was a spur of rape of Muslim women. And this is also claimed in this report that is made by the BBC in this 2000 that talks about the 2002 violence in Gujarat. It also adds that the objective of these riots was to purge Muslims from the Hindu areas. Isn't this objective continuing in 2023 as well?
No, it's continuing throughout India, throughout all the length and breadth of India, and that's you could witness almost every day what the Hindu extremist Hindutva mindset people are doing with the Muslim minorities, or even the other minorities. They are doing it, and they have fully, from their standpoint, they have fully tried to legitimize it in many areas, and rather the entire India. If we talk of the Citizenship Act, if we talk of Citizens Register, what are these? These are these are giving legitimacy to marginalization of the minorities, particularly Muslims, and that's what they have done by abrogating 370 and 35 provision from their own constitution. That's what they are doing in Kashmir, and that has that has fully been documented by the Human Rights Commission and Human Rights Commissioner, who in front of press has presented his report not once, twice. And then while presenting that report, even the tears were rolling out of that Human Rights Commission, not Indian, not Pakistani, not from this region. So the world has those images in their mind and heart, and these would have its cumulative effect and impact, and that would definitely show its results sooner or later. And India.
But when you talk of cumulative effects, Dr. Saab, when you talk about the tears rolling down the faces of the Westerners while they are presenting this report, should all of this be relegated to reports, to documentaries, to tears rolling down? Shouldn't there be some kind of action taken? I understand we've talked about this in the past as well, the huge strategic relationship that India enjoys with important Western partners. But can't this be set aside, and all the human rights abuses that are perpetuating should also be taken to course in parallel to their relationship in whichever capacity they have with India?
I know the world is changing very fast. The geopolitical and geostrategic situation is also changing in the world. And in the coming years and in the coming time, I personally feel that this has to, the international legal mechanism and framework would take its own course. And the people cannot get away with riots and with a massacre like Gujarat, or for that matter Kashmir. There have been not one so many recommendations that it could even go up to the war crime, and the world has witnessed in terms of some other countries, including what had happened in Kosovo and Bosnia. So once this geostrategic cloud recedes, you'll find that something would definitely, and then in the world geopolitical and the diplomatic arena, things definitely develop through these mechanisms. And once it's developed, it would go to the right forum. And what are those right forums? Those right forums are, of course, the International War Crime Court, but then there's a whole lot of a mechanism of Security Council through which that is invoked, and then the General Assembly. So this is plus
International Court of Justice, maybe International Court of Justice, Dr. Saab.
No, this is the Narendra Modi case is purely a case of the International Criminal Court, but the International Court of Justice can address legislation like the Citizens Act and as well as the Citizens Register, where they are orchestrating through the legal by drawing the legal framework which goes against the human rights and which is aimed and targeted to marginalize the minorities in India. It is also very clearly mentioned in the Religious Freedom Report of United States just last year. Then India has made an objection to that, but that report is there. So once these dots are connected, the case what we are discussing today, once those significance of India which it has attained due to a variety of reasons, once that starts receding, the world would witness that people have to be taken, the perpetrators have to be taken on task, and at that time, perhaps even the Congress in India, the Congress party politicians have made objections to it, but now they too have been suppressed and pressurized so much that now those voices are also diminishing in India.
All right.
But
you talk of connecting dots. Let's connect the dots as far as the so-called situation of the Kashmiri Pandits is concerned. We've seen a whole film, a propaganda film that has come out with the name of Kashmir Father. Now it is being re-released to further appease the mindset of the Hindu supremacy in India and across the world, and not only that, to change the complete narrative of what actually happened. This said, if we look at the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir region as well, one of the latest reports talks about 930 flats being made specially for the Kashmiri Pandits because, say, they quote-unquote fear for their lives. And these flats have just recently been inaugurated by the governor of the region. Why? By the Lieutenant Governor. Why is that happening? And which kind of image is India trying to show to the world as far as the actual situation of what Muslims are going through in illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir is concerned versus the so-called situation of the Kashmiri Pandits?
And we have witnessed about 720 such websites and 720 which has been detected not by us, by the Europeans, that their propaganda machinery. So they are just trying to do it once again in terms of releasing this film. But at the same time, the reports which I just indicated and reports which I've just cited during the program, those reports are the reports which are on the record of these international forums, including United Nations, as well as we had sent a dossier, and that dossier also contains some of the extracts of the Human Rights Commissioner's report, and that's part of the record. So coming back on the way they are changing the demography, what to talk of these apartments which are they making, what to talk of these lands which they are allocating, what to talk of the permission of purchasing the property after changing 35, which I said. So all those things are directed towards one thing, and that is basically to change the demography. And that demography is under the ambit, this is the violation of Geneva Convention, Article 49. And that Article 49, if violated in terms of demography, then in that case, the additional protocol of Geneva Convention suggests that it can attract Article 8 of the International Criminal Court, what I was just mentioning. So, but the fact of the matter is that it has to be made as an agenda of Security Council or General Assembly or the Human Rights Council, which has already said a lot about it. So there has to be a consistency. Diplomacy, international politics is basically the name of continuity and consistency. So it has to go on. And this documentary, what we are quoting and what we are discussing today,
Dr. Jamil, the only consistency which I feel, and I'm sure you would agree with me, that would put some kind of a pressure on India to reverse their decisions and the tactics that are using against the minority, especially the Muslims, is economic sanctions. That is the only way, that is the only language that India as a country will understand. Do you agree?
Well, that is the best tool available with the World Forum. But is the world prepared for it? My point is that what to talk of the world players, our own OIC has its own Article 9 and 10. And they have not really convened an extraordinary meeting to impose economic sanctions on India, even while the Muslims are being not only marginalized, they are being killed, they are being lynched. So nothing has happened. So since nothing has happened to the authorities there in India, and particularly Hindutva mindset and the RSS strategy, so they are just going scot-free. So I personally feel that if the OIC countries, or for that matter, the human rights activists around the world, where they've been always advocating the human rights, there would be a bottom-up pressure. There would be a bottom-up pressure from those OIC member countries. There would be a bottoms-up pressure from those countries who are the proponent of the human rights. So it's just a matter of time, as I said, that
Dr. Jamil, I understand it's a matter of time, but the fact is, how long will it take? I mean, or will it take another decade or even more till such time when the whole demography of the Indian held valley would have changed because of the decisions and the new laws that are being put forward by the Indian government as to make the Muslim majority into a Muslim minority, to include so many people from different religions inside of the Indian held valley, so that whenever plebiscite takes place in the next coming years, that the result would be completely different and as per the aspirations of the Indian BJP government. Shouldn't the decision come sooner than later in your point of view, sir?
That's right, but what is the tool available? What are the platforms available? The only platform available to stop them is the economic sanction. Now, who is going to impose economic sanction? Either it should be a sanction bilateral, or if it's a multilateral sanction, then OIC platform is the best platform. And if it's the international sanction, then the United Nations Security Council is the one. But all these places, because of the factors and facts which we just discussed, although these countries and platforms and the forums, they are reluctant in doing that. So long as they are reluctant, India is going to continue what they are continuing now with the change of demography. And this demography change, after demography change, they would say, we want to implement the Security Council resolution and we want to have the plebiscite there. Let's have it. So at that time, I don't know what the world is going to say, but I think between now and the time once they fully change the demography, it's the time that, including Pakistan, most of the countries should really make their voice, and through the public diplomacy, through the legal diplomacy, and of course through all the means in on their hands to really stop that. If they don't stop it, then in in that situation, things would be different. And believe me, if that happens, there would be an implosion. There would be a turmoil within the Indian society and within the India itself, and India would not be able to withstand that. They could manage somehow the external problem and external pressures, but internal pressure which is in the offing, if they continue with this mindset and if this strategy, then they are going to implode from within.
All right, now looking at all the different perspectives of this documentary also and how it highlights, the atrocities committed by India from a different perspective other than Pakistan. Coming to Pakistan, because this is the Britishers that have Pakistan has highlighted time and again on different forms of the global forum, whether it be the United Nations, whether it be the SCO, whether it be other fora, talking about the atrocities that are being perpetrated by India. You talked about public diplomacy, legal diplomacy, that are tools that Pakistan has used very efficiently. Of late, Foreign Minister Bilawal Bhutto Zardari had described Narendra Modi as the butcher of Gujarat, and that created a lot of hullabaloo as far as the reaction from different quarters there is concerned as well. How important was this highlighting of the fact by Mr. Zardari at this point of time when, of course, his popularity amongst the world leaders is gaining momentum, and they are listening more to the Pakistani perspective as to what India is doing?
I think after a long time, Pakistan has started highlighting the way it should have been highlighted. And the Foreign Minister of Pakistan, I think the way he has really emphasized on it, that definitely further enhances the value of all the evidence which is available on record of the world and on the record of various forums of the world. So these statements are going to augment what have been reported, what has been said, what has been documented, and what has been tabled as an agenda on the General Assembly and as an agenda on the on the Human Rights Council and on the agenda of Security Council, which was vetoed and which was not brought to the agenda in the recent past. So this would further give a strength. And I think we should keep continuing. Our Foreign Office should keep continuing. Our Foreign Minister should keep continuing that, because we are the voice of the Kashmiris. Our heart and our mind and our heart is with the Kashmiris.
And will remain with the Kashmiris, and we will continue to help them in whichever way possible, politically, morally, and diplomatically. Thank you very much to Dr. Jamil Ahmed Khan Saab, former ambassador and foreign affairs expert, to have joined us to talk about this two-part documentary that has been released by the BBC Two, and that extensively details the atrocities that were perpetrated by India under Narendra Modi, the Gujarat riots of 2002, and it has brought to light through facts and figures how India continues to do that to date. And of course, this is a very important document as far as Pakistan stands also as what India is perpetrating towards the hapless Muslims in the Indian Hill Valley and across India is concerned. Let's come to our second segment, and that concerns more or less what India has also been perpetrating vis-a-vis Pakistan. Disinformation, misinformation, fake information. These are three words that we've heard many a times. These are three words we have also heard in the context of the EU Disinfo Lab that we've discussed in the past programs as well. Nevertheless, these are three terms that are used extensively by organizations, by political parties, by countries, in order to propagate a fake narrative about them, a fake narrative about what they do, and a fake narrative about their opponents. These are tools that are extremely important, but in a very negative manner. These are also tools that are very detrimental or have a very negative impact on the image of the opponent, whosoever he or she or that organization might be. Now, news organizations' role is also very important as far as all of this is concerned. How do you move forward with that? How do you understand what is fake news, what is not, what is disinformation, and what is misinformation? There is like just as far as the difference between these two is concerned. We've been joined by Asad Beg, Executive Director, Media Matters for Democracy, inside the studios. Asad, thank you very much to have joined us.
My pleasure.
Long time that we have had a conversation, and it's always good, as we say, better late than never. There is a little difference between misinformation that we call honest news and disinformation that is called deceptive news. How important are these tools being used by countries, by organizations, by political parties inside of Pakistan and outside, in order to create a narrative that is fake?
I think that's a very important question, Batsab, and thank you so much for having me on your show. Let me start with the story of 2016 American election. And everybody heard about the Russian influence and so on. So a lot of debate was conducted. There was a lot of investigation there into the process and so on. So a number of researchers that have came out since then, they say that the countries of Southeast Asia and South Asia are specifically vulnerable to a threat like that in future, which is essentially external influence in the form of disinformation, in the form of misinformation targeted at democratic processes, namely the voting process here in this case. And then we saw the whole, you rightly mentioned, the EU Disinfo Labs, fiasco where they came up with a bunch of websites which were very organized in the manner that they were propagating, misinformation and disinformation and so on. So that has made us come to this point of a very, very sort of a critical point, I would say, where we are obviously about to have the general elections 2023, hopefully, and then we are also simultaneously thinking about how this kind of disinformation, quote unquote, can impact on that democratic process. Now, some of the things that I've seen specifically, because this is my literally a day-to-day job of monitoring social media and the kind of disinformation, they're harrowing. They're harrowing. Let me just very quickly tell you that in 2016, from 2016 to 2018, there were 31 lynchings in India, specifically in the context of fake news and social media rumors, quote unquote, right? And my fear is that unfortunately, we are perhaps going down that lane. Thankfully, we haven't really got there yet. But we have pretty similar fault lines as India. Like we have the ethnic issue is very important here. The whole sort of the religious issue is obviously can be very easily exploited and so on. I mean, my fear is that unless we plug some of that fault lines that we have in Pakistan, we may see a very serious impact around the general elections. And the sad news is that nothing much has been done, unfortunately, on the lines of kind of educating the people, the citizens of Pakistan, with regards to misinformation.
This is a very important point, educating the people. There is one thing of educating the people. There is the other fact that people don't want, or maybe don't want to understand or know what the truth is. Sometimes they attach themselves to a perspective, to a point of view, to such an extent that come what may, come whatever the reality or not of the situation or the news might be, they will still attach themselves to it and consider that news to be true. How fatal can the consequences of such an act could be?
Look, if you go down into the the roots of this problem, then you realize that we have still that very actively have that hero worship syndrome in Pakistan, wherein my leader, whoever that may be, if he or she is saying something, that is true and that is what I need to abide by, which essentially points towards a very serious fact that there is a complete miss of critical thinking within the masses, which essentially kind of enables or helps them to question the narrative which is being perpetrated.
Critical thinking.
That's what I'm saying, right? And this is one of the questions that we've been wondering about. There have been examples of governments who have incorporated mill curriculum in schools, for instance, right? We in my organization have been now going to schools and kind of teaching children on how to identify misinformation and how not to react on something, and before you react and you investigate. So these are very simple things that you could try and inculcate in the people's minds. There are standard awareness mechanisms that I think this has to be. And the more important point, Batsab, is that the newsrooms, they're literally the first line of defense when it comes to misinformation, right? Which essentially means that they are in many ways responsible for providing us the credible information. Now, if you see what newsrooms have been dealing with in the past 4 or 5 years, their revenues have been declining. There have been massive layoffs in the newsroom. As a result, the quality is suffering. We see even the most credible news outlets are falling for misinformation. And this is perhaps the time when we need the newsroom the most.
That's a very important thing. Is misinformation or disinformation a popular tool to be used for garnering ratings?
It is in many ways, but that's the point, right? And this is the double-edged sword. So you can do that only a few number of times. Then there comes a very soon there'll come a point when you lose complete credibility, and then you'll basically become a tabloid, as we call it, right? My concern is not with the tabloids. My concern is the mainstream credible news organization, and the concern is that they perhaps don't have enough resources at this point in time, both technical resources and human resources, that they can effectively in the general election elections of 2023, they can effectively provide the citizens with the role that they're obviously tasked with, i.e. providing the credible information. We need to do something about that.
But what can we do?
Yeah, that's a very, very important point. One, that we need to make sure that there is enough space within the newsrooms for people who have done some investigations on misinformation, right? And this is extremely important. The good news is, in my personal experience of engaging with the newsrooms, they're opening up now.
All right.
They're moving towards open source intelligence and other means of credible information sourcing and whatnot. There still are a lot of people who don't take it seriously, unfortunately, and they need to work something. Number one. Number two, I think it's very important that the government, this would be the right time to do that the government start talking about misinformation, the impact, the dangers of it, and how very easily any external force, for instance, we have the example of the EU Disinfo Lab, can affect this, the narrative and sort of the information sort of exchange that they can literally weaponize it.
In this free flow of information, in this free flow of any kind of information that can be disseminated by whosoever, in whichever capacity he or she wants, in whichever part of the world one wants, how can one restrict fake content? Can some legislation be brought about? Can all of this be legalized so that one can stop any form of fake news or disinformation or misinformation from getting into the wrong quarters?
I think that's an excellent, and thank you so much for asking this question, because this I've been pinning to answer, so to speak. But look, so we have examples where countries have brought up such legislations and they're spectacularly failed, right? And the reason is one very simple reason, that you simply cannot stop the process of information production, because there's so many people on Twitter, there's so many people on Facebook, you simply cannot police all of them. So there are literally 2 or 3 things that you can do. One, that you can, as opposed to working on information production, you can work on information consumption, which means that the people who are consuming the information, you can work on their minds, i.e. with the critical thinking process.
But how can you do that? Because there are so many users.
You need to start. Look, we should have started 10 years ago, but the second best time is now, right? So we need to start somewhere. Yes, exactly. So we need to start ASAP, specifically before the elections, number one. Number two, you talk about laws, and that's an excellent point, because and this is what I've been talking to a lot of my parliamentarian friends, because they also want to bring in legislation. A very bad idea. Let me tell you why. We already have defamation laws, 2 of them. We already have PEMRA Code of Conduct and so on. So the laws we have,
but are these laws applied?
Exactly my point. Exactly my point. Thank you. And same was the question of the former Chief Justice of Islamabad High Court, Minallah Saab, right? He literally questioned that why is the civil defamation laws not being used as opposed to the criminal defamation. And so, the simple defamation and the simple explanation for that is because there is not enough case law for their implementation, because they haven't really been used enough times, right? So
people maybe don't know that they
exactly. And this reforms process will take a time, unfortunately. My simple appeal to the people in the policy circle is that you start now. That now would be the best time to start.
Could be used for that?
I think Parliament, starting with the Parliament, I think it'd be great. I think the Election Commission of Pakistan should have some funds, to maybe do like a public campaign on how misinformation can be dangerous and what are the very simple means of verifying information and so on.
Even more, dangerous is disinformation.
Exactly, which is targeted information to make some, and we've seen how this is affected in Pakistan, right? And the third thing is that we need to empower the media entities, the credible newsrooms. We need to empower them in one way or another, however we can, as civil society, as policy making circles. We need to improve their space so they can actually do their role, play their job of sort of fighting the disinformation, which civil society members can hardly do in their own spaces.
As individuals, you are of course handling an organization that does exactly that. I am a journalist. I understand things maybe better than others do, but for a layman, how can he or she spot disinformation and the intent that is behind it?
Look, this is a very good question, and for the people who are watching, I'll 2, 3 very simple tips. One, that every single time you consume a source, you need to investigate it. Which means that if you're consuming information, let's say from Dawn's website or from PTV's website or from any other website, you need to verify that whether or not this content is actually coming from them. Because it's very easy for me to just Photoshop an image and put a PTV logo on it and say something, whatever whatever I want to say. Just like, yes. So one, you need to investigate the source, as we say. Number one. Number two, you need to verify the information's the time and the date, and basically essentially whether or not it's relevant now. So something that happened, let's say 10 years ago, and that is being shared today, clearly there is some malintention involved in that process, right? So you need to make sure that you identify whether or not it was. And the third thing is the geographic context. And this is one thing that really gets to me, because people don't understand that there are, pictures of, let's say, Iraq or Afghanistan war, which can be shared saying, and recently this happened, there was this video, I remember very sort of clearly, in March there was this video circulating of how there was a drone attack in Pakistan. And the video and the image was actually, I think, 8 or 9 years ago from Afghanistan. And people were sharing it constantly, saying that there has been a drone attack, to the point that they actually, I think there was maybe iSphere or something, they came up with an official sort of statement that there was no drone attack. And so to the point I'm trying, those people, did they ever think about what they're doing, literally the kind of damage that narrative will cause to the people of Pakistan or to the Pakistan as a country itself? So I think these questions, they need to really ask themselves, what is the benefit for them if they do it, and versus the damage to the country or damage to the people of Pakistan that they perhaps will be doing by sharing something like that. It's a very simple thing to press a retweet or press a like, but the damage that
and even on WhatsApp, you are part of so many groups and you receive so many kinds of information, and a major part of that information is fake.
Absolutely, and people just forward it saying, what was that? Shared as received. Shared as sent as received. And smarter people say, is this true? But the fact of the matter is that you have actually, by saying this and doing this, you have amplified this information. And you have actually put people's lives at risk. We've seen this many times in Pakistan when people have shared this, is this true, on Twitter about something. And the people involved have literally been threatened for their lives in the country. And unfortunately, this is a fault line that we have to live with until we plug it.
Speaking of fault lines, Asad, how can we critically evaluate any information that we receive on social media?
That's a very important question. You see, for the first thing for that, you need to have that critical thinking ability to think about it, because this is literally the first step. People don't think about it. So people literally, I tell you, I know people who are sort of, the generation before me, and they would say, oh, I saw it on Facebook. So they're kind of equating Facebook with the journalism media.
Or on Instagram, or on Twitter.
Right. So, if you saw something on Facebook, that's it. You cannot equate it with something you read in the paper or so in a bulletin, news bulletin. They're two very different things. And how do you figure this out? By the basic ability of questioning that sort of information, in your mind, which we call the critical thinking process, right? So first, that thing needs to be inculcated, and this is why I'm saying this is not something a civil society organization or a group of civil society members can do. This has to come from the government and in a very organized manner, and they can do it because we've seen government-based campaigns on various things. We've seen tax reforms happening, we've seen other things happening, and so on. COVID is a great example, for instance. Do you know, WhatsApp, that people, and we've conducted multiple research